Hey there. Welcome back to Light Up with Letitia. I am your host, Letitia, and I thank you for coming back to my channel. Welcome. So we are still talking about Tyler Perry's Beauty in Black, and we are discussing episodes, so messy and dark episodes 5 and 6 today. So episode 5 starts, it's called Unraveling Threads, and we're at the motel. Kimmy gets home from the hospital after finding out about an expired ring, and body bother somebody and her crew pulls up asking where the heck she's been, right? She slap her around, she throw her in the car, and they speed off somewhere. By the way, people like body, the bullies like body, people like that, you really need to like show them something, whatever. They're not gonna stop messing with you until you truly show them what's up. I really don't think that body is all about that life anyway, because she always second guessing herself, and she's just an insecure girl like many of the other girls. I'm like, you get her one good time, and she won't mess with you no more. You see, she always has to have a crew with her. Anyway, moving on. We get to the hospital, and Norman gets a visit from Jules, right? Where Jules informs him that there were a few homicides at the junkyard where Ina was found. Okay. Now, but Norman is like, but Ina wasn't Pow Pow, So Jules said, okay, I'll check the CCT footage and see, what else is going on. Now, in the meantime, Norman is telling him, like, listen, so Ina is making progress and hopefully she will be able to talk soon, right? He believes that Ina was targeted simply because he knows his nephews know that if something happens to Norman, that all of his shares would automatically go to Ina. So they're trying to get rid of Ina. The way their dad wrote it in their will was that their shares of, or Norman's shares of Beauty in Black would automatically go to his wife. But if there is no wife and because they have no children, it'll automatically go back to the whole family. Ain't that some stuff? I mean, I guess it should in that case, but he truly believes that there's a plot against him to get rid of his wife so that when he is gone, all of his shares will go back to the family and the nephews will then be able to take advantage of that. Now, I feel like, again, don't forget, we found out Jules was in Horace's will. Well, he's in the will. My thing is, remember I talked about the fact that maybe Jules might be a son? I think now that they've mentioned their dad, Norman and Horace's dad in his will, I'm thinking it is very possible that maybe Jules is not a son, but maybe he's a brother. Hmm. Okay, let's just explore that a little bit later on. So moving on, we're at Roy's place where Kimmy got dropped off. She got thrown in the van. So this is where she got dropped off at, right? Because again, Roy wants her to pay. So this was his request to get Kimmy sent there. He wanted to confront her for calling his wife while they were in the hotel room before. But he accuses her. She's like, no, how would I even do that? Even though she actually did do it. But then Roy, Lord have mercy, he turns it into a therapy session. He starts talking about the fact that his parents hate him and that he has a loser brother and blah 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 blah. I'm like, she is not your therapist, but he gets his wits about him for just a second and he remembers who he's talking to and immediately starts berating her just like he used to do all the time, talking about she ain't this and she's not educated, she probably didn't go to college and blah 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 blah. He just told, just take off your clothes or whatever, just you can't do nothing else, just take off your clothes. And this fool still can't get it up, so he mad all over again because he can't get it up. What kind of HOE doesn't can't get the man up or whatever. So he calls her dumb, said basically she's too dumb to have called his wife, and he throws her out. Child. But back at the motel, Angel and Horace are still in the room. They're finishing up their business actually. And so Angel was like, well, do you want to see me again? Horace says yes, but he said, well, maybe you should take down my number. Horace is like, no, I think we're gonna stick through Kimmy. It is at this point we found out that Angel believes that Kimmy is skimming off the top and that basically pimping him. And Horace is like, no, I'm not paying her extra or anything like that. Finally, Horace leaves. He sees Kimmy outside. She comes inside Immediately she comes in, she starts drinking, and just she's not even saying anything to Angel. Angel's kind of like, "What's going on?" Whatever. She drinking, she's sitting down there. All of a sudden, you hear this woman yelling in the background. Child, it is his child's mother, Yolanda. I didn't know her name. I forgot her name last time, but Yolanda, she called him and said, "Hey, what are you at? Are you in the room now? Are you in the room now?" And next thing you know, she is outside destroying his car. I mean, knocking out all the windows. And she didn't come alone, because when he tried to stop her, here come her two brothers bulking up on him or whatever. So basically, he had to stand there while she was destroying his car, accusing the man of being with Kimmy, and then they speed off and leave. Now he is highly upset. He's like, "Oh my gosh, we need to get out of this." He wants out of this life. Okay. Now Kimmy is just sitting there. She crying, she drinking, and basically she just tired. Okay. Finally, she agrees, you know what, to go ahead and do the plan with Angel to take get the take on Horace. So basically rob him. At Horace's home, actually. Jules tells him about Ina's progress, and that the fact that she's getting better may not be a good thing for them. So Horace asks, which son is it? He knows that one of his sons is responsible. Which one? And why does Jules say Roy? Now, okay, in all fairness, he did hit the body, right? But it's not like he did it first. He is not the one ultimately responsible for this woman being in the hospital. But he says, so Horace says, you know what? He does not like his children at all. He cannot stand them. And he's like, you know what? I have every thought to just let him rot in jail, talking about Roy. He said, but I don't want to give my brother the satisfaction. Okay. He hates their absolute guts. He cannot stand his children. And Jules, just basically listening to the conversation was like, well, you know what? If all it takes is a word, I can take them all out if that's what you want me to do, or whatever. So Horace was like, no, 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 no. Again, I wouldn't give my brother the satisfaction. But he says, I think I have a friend that at the hospital that owes me a favor. And so Jules was like, oh, a favor? Well, I can, take care of it. He said, listen, I only call out favors. I only do bodies buried favors. That's the only time he asks for favors, basically. So you know what that means. Ina is most likely a goner. Now moving on to the hospital. So of course, Norman is sitting there by Ina's side, and a friendly nurse comes in with good news. She's changing liquids, tinkering around with the machines or whatever, and she comes in with good news with the fact that her vitals look good, Ina's vitals look good, and that looks like she might be getting a little bit better, right? She even offers him a bed. She says, "Oh, you look really tired. If you want us to get you a bed, you don't have to sit in that chair. You can lay down and get some rest." Again, just very helpful. And she said, "Hey, I can tell that you love her, whatever, and she's really lucky." So he said, "If you need any help, go ahead and just ring the bell, and we'll come and bring you a bed." Now, uh later on, he actually does go and ask for that bed. He went to the nurse's station. It was a different nurse there, but he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll take that bed now." And she's kind of confused, like, "What do you mean, sir? What do you mean, Mr. Bellery?" And she was like, "Oh, the nurse, she said that I could get a bed." Now they don't know who or what he's talking about. But she did reassure him, "Well, I mean, if you want us to get you a bed, we can do that, but we don't know who you're talking about. What shift was that? Do you know how long ago it was?" This man is absolutely confused and totally bewildered as he walks back to the room to sit by his wife. So then moving on, oh Lord, here we go. Mallory. Mallory calls Calvin and asks where Roy is. I mean, this woman is so she's so businesslike. Like she's taking care of the business, she's taking care of stuff. She's always perfectly groomed and everything, and she still finds time to worry about what her raggedy husband Roy is doing. So she asked Calvin, she's basically trying to get in with Calvin, trying to get some inside deets. Ask him how close he is with Jules and stuff like that. Now, remind you, this is after their encounter that they had in the back of the truck the night before. So she basically impresses upon him, listen, I'm gonna need you to keep this discreet. But I need you to also keep me informed about whatever and wherever Roy is doing. Okay. So then she later calls Charles, who is basically just waking up, to inform him that she had a conversation with Varney the night before about the lawsuit. Now, in the background, now again, we saw Charles just waking up or whatever, but in the background, there's a man showering in, there's somebody showering. She's like, listen, this is very serious. I'm really going to need you to get into the office so we can sit down and talk about this. So, okay, she gets off the phone. He goes to approach the person in the shower. Child is Barney, which is why we saw his eyes get all big when those text messages was being read. Those explicit text messages were being said out loud in that board meeting. Okay. So he gets out of the shower, tongues Charles down, and then tells him that indeed the lawsuit can take them down, because Charles was like, what is it that you're not telling me? Mallory just called me. What is it you're not telling me? So he's like, listen, lawsuit's pretty bad. It could take the whole family down. It could take the whole company down. And I'm not sure there's anything you can do about it. So Barney talks about the fact that he loves him. But he warns him. He said, man, listen, do you have any money set aside? Do you have your ducks in a row? He was like, I'm telling you, if you don't, you need to sober up and get your shit in order. Period. Okay. So Charles kind of is like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate that. But also, he's like, listen, I'm not trying to be closeted. Like, I want to be open and free with you. Why won't you do that? Now, Varney's saying, listen, I'm not closeted. He said, I just keep my business to myself. He said, your family is my biggest client. And I can't have that get messed up. So let's just, listen, let this be what it is, where they just get together every now and then. Now back to Mallory. She then approaches Roy, warning him that he better not embarrass her, because she is all about the image. She goes on to leave, and she's going to leave the house, right? Of course, Jillian and Calvin are waiting outside for her. And she starts talking so crazy to Jillian. Not that it's not a secret. I mean, she's always talking crazy, but she started saying some really crazy things, to the point where she's like, okay, you know what? You can't even ride with me today. And Jillian was like, okay, why can't I ride with you? I'm supposed to be helping you, or whatever. She was like, you smell like old hair grease and mothballs. You smell like Jim Crow. Now, what? Who does that? Who says that? And she was like, as a matter of fact, did you sit on this side? Oh no, I can't sit on this side. She gets out of the truck, gets on the other side, just to spite this woman for sitting in her seat. Child, the way she was talking to her, she told her to find her own way to work. Told Calvin, let's go. She goes back in, Jillian goes back into the house, and all of a sudden she's going through Mallory's closet, which I thought was really weird. This is a really weird scene anyway. But she runs into her closet. She pulls out some blue dress, and then she ends up running into Roy, who is like bothering her about it. Basically, like, so what are you doing? Did my wife tell you this? She's like, oh yeah, Mallory told me to get this for her, whatever. He said, oh really? So he's taunting her and like, oh okay, so if I call my wife, then she would tell me that she told you to come and get this. So she finally confesses, basically. He's like, what you trying to do? You trying to set me up? Now listen, let me just tell you, the theme of this freaking episode and the next couple of episodes is everybody accusing somebody of setting them up. They don't trust each other at all whatsoever. But I feel like they also suspicious of each other because they're all hiding secrets. So Roy thinks that Jillian is setting him up, or and that Mallory's gonna spin the block and come back around and catch them. So I'm like, oh my gosh, the not only the delusion but the paranoia. My goodness. Okay, so moving on. Back at the hospital, The doctor comes in with the test results saying basically, I'm so sorry, Mr. Norman, or his name's not Mr. Norman, but Mr. Bellery, that but we've done all that we can do. Last night she developed Ina, developed severe bleeding on the brain, and is basically now brain dead. Norman is beside himself. He is like, what? He is frustrated. He begins to get upset. He's confused because he was just told that she was doing better and would be able to speak pretty soon. So he does one of these, like, to calm himself down. And you can tell that it's basically the calm before the storm. He immediately calls Jules and he said he needs to have his wife move from this hospital because something is wrong and they're trying to do something to his wife. He then calls his brother Horace and told him that something was going on with Ina and that he blamed the sons and threatened both of the sons, saying that he will end them. Horace told him, well, boy, if you're going to do it and get off my phone. And that was in the episode 5. I mean, Horace can't stand his kids. He don't want to be the one to put his hands on them, but it seems that he does not mind if somebody else does. Child. Moving on. All right, so then we move on to episode 6, which is called Bang Bang. And oh my gosh, you ain't gonna believe what happened. So Mallory and Calvin pull up to the office and they are met by protesters that are outside of the building. So they pull into the garage to basically get out of the news's way. And Jules tells Calvin to get out. He gets into the car to talk to Mallory privately. And Mallory wants to know who's behind these protests. He told her the lawyer who served her, Lena, is behind it, and she wants her unalived immediately in the street. Jules tells her basically that the aunt situation has been handled, but he asked her to go and see Norman. She was not trying to go see Norman. She wasn't trying to go see Ina. None of that kind of stuff, whatever. But she was still asking, where was Roy from that first episode? I want to know who he was with. Oh my gosh. So then Jules says, okay, listen, I'll get you the girl's information if you go and see your uncle, Norman. Now, back at the hotel, Angel is sleeping but wakes up to Yolanda outside yelling again. Okay. Now, Kimmy is calmly looking out the window with a bottle in her hand. I mean, just as melancholy as she wants to be. And then she just calmly says, she just set your car on fire. Child, he went outside, tried to extinguish the fire from the car, but it's a goner. It's a hot mess. Child, the stuff is burnt up. It's gone. So he running back in, upset, hollering, crying, and everything. And Kimmy is just sitting there. And he was like, I know you're not about to laugh. It's not funny. And she was like, no, it's not funny. It's sad. Okay? Angel wants to, he is super determined to put this plan together to to rob Horace, right? She was like, listen, we can just go away. Me, you, Ryan, we can go to the Dominican Republic, which I believe that's where he's from. And she was like, how are we going to do that when Jules has all of our paperwork? She was like, furthermore, she reveals at this point that Rain passes away. And he goes to console her. He's like, but listen, this is even more of a reason. We need to get out of this life. So, back at the hospital, again, Norman is beside himself, but he brought in a favor, called his doctor friend, to move his wife to another hospital. Now, the doctor says, now listen, it's risky and I really don't advise it. But he's like, listen, you owe me a favor, blah, 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 blah. We're moving her. So they go to move her. The original doctor, the one that gave him the bad news, she comes and she's like, what are you doing? You can't move her. We don't advise this at all. And then she questions this other doctor, his doctor friend. She's like, well, who is this? What doctor? Who are you? Where are you from? What's your name? And that sort of thing, whatever. Of course they ignore, because Norman's like, we are leaving. Now Mallory shows up. So she did go and see her Uncle Norman with flowers and saying, hey, trying to, console him and trying to encourage him that Ina's going to get better. He wants to know who did this. Who did this? Was it one of the boys? Which one of the boys did it? And Mallory assures him that the boys did not do it and that they can all trust Jules because he's on top of it. Then in the background, child, a commercial for the lawsuit comes on the television. So, they are clearly dealing with a whole lot of stuff. She calls Jules to tell him that Norman is going to be moving Ina. Now, back at the office, Roy pulls up to the same protesters that Mallory and Calvin pulled up to, and he does not care. He doesn't decide to go to the basement. He just gets out of his car and walks right through the crowd, just so ornery. He is confronted by a woman who talks about the fact that her daughter is a cancer patient because of the products from Beauty and Black, right? And then, as he continues to walk, he is approached by this woman, Lena, the lawyer, and she serves him. She also reminds him that she knows him from college, and basically he tried to holler at her, but she wasn't trying to be dealing with him because he was already dealing with Mallory. So then she starts playing mind games with him, though, to say things like, well, we know you're the one that's really in charge. We know that you're really the brains behind the thing, whatever. Really feeding his ego. Meanwhile, Jillian is in Mallory's office pretending to be Mallory when Roy walks in on her again. He's always walking in on her. She tells him that Mallory went to the hospital, and then Jillian starts flirting with Roy, but he turns her down. Why, though? Not because he's just such a wholesome man and husband. It's because he believes that Mallory is trying to set him up. So he turns her down. Jules and Roy talk about Kimmy and the fact that Mallory wants to know who she is, right? Now, Jules says, he said, well, I'll give her something. I have a couple of girls that's not really doing what they're supposed to be doing anyway, so I'll give her one of them. And then Roy says, yeah, because Mallory can be vicious. Now, child, he about to throw one of the other girls to the wolves, and wolves, aka meaning Mallory. Child. Anyway, they start talking about like a divorce, and Roy's like, I'll never divorce her because we get more shares as a couple. And then Roy tells Jules that he plans to meet up with Lena, the lawyer, to talk to her, whatever. He doesn't think that's a good idea, but he was like, no, I'm gonna do it. Then Jules starts feeding him. Well, we do know, yes, we do. We know that you are the brains behind this operation. Yes, we know that you absolutely can do it. The truth is, Roy has very low self-esteem. Now he is rich, he's fine, and all of that, but he has zero self-esteem. He's a dummy. He doesn't know how to do anything. I kind of feel sorry for him a little bit. If he wasn't so nasty, I would feel sorry for him just a little bit. But anyway, he goes off after being fed, his ego being fed. Why did he run off to the bathroom? And Jules was like, oh Lord. He ran off to go and use that stuff, right here. Moving on. Mallory comes in and Jules basically gives him an update. Now back at the motel, Kimmy gets a call from Sylvie, which is her little sister. She didn't get the money that Kimmy sent. Why? Because Frank took it. Okay. And Frank won't let Sylvie be a cheerleader. They won't let her do anything. Sylvie wants to come and live with Kimmy because when she's 18 in 2 years, let's remember that. So she's 16 years old, right? That will be important in the latter episodes. But she wants to come and live in Chicago with Kimmy and see. So I'm thinking, so Kimmy must not have been from Chicago. Maybe they live on this over the state line in Indiana. I don't remember. But anyway, her family believes that she's a nurse. Kimmy's family believes that she's a nurse. Never mind where she would have got money to go to nursing school. Anyway, so Angel comes in again, consoles Kimmy as she continues to grieve Rain, who she believes was the only one who loved her besides her sister. And she says she also wants to get out for the sake of her sister. But she's having second thoughts about Horace though, because he reminds her of her grandfather, who was the only man that was ever nice to her. However, then she goes into basically a small rage. It's like, you know what? But my grandfather would have kept his word about going to see Rain. So for her, the plan is back on. Now back at Charles and Varney, Varney tries to convince Charles to stay safe and to go to his mom's house, right? And then offers for him to come and stay with him. But Charles is like, I don't want to be closeted. You know what I'm saying? If you wanna love me openly, that's great. He said, but if I'm not gonna sit and be your little secret anymore. Varney gets upset and he says that he is done, and not just done with him, but done with the entire situationship. And he finished getting dressed, grab his briefcase, and walks off. Now this part is funny because Charles is like, he gonna turn around, take down the back of his pants to show them cheeks. It was like, you'll be back for this ass. A mess. Charles is one of my favorite characters. He's funny. Okay, so anyway, now we get back to the ambulance because remember I told you Norman was like, "Get my wife up out of here." So Norman, his doctor friend, a nurse are all in the ambulance taking Ina to another hospital, right? All of a sudden the machines start beeping and he starts yelling, "You better save her, you better save her." Child, they try to revive her, but she flatlines, y'all. He starts yelling, "You said you could safely move her. You said she'd be okay," and blah, blah, blah. He gets all paranoid. He started asking the folks one by one, "Do you know my brother? Do you know my brother?" He asked the doctor, "Do you know my brother?" And he's like, "No, no, no." Pow. Then they had already arrived at this point. So then the EMTs, two EMTs opened up the doors. "Do you know my brother? Do you know my brother?" Pow, pow. And then the nurse, "Do you know my brother?" She's like, "No, no, no, no." Pow. One by one, he knocking them all out. And that is how it ended. Crazy. But y'all, we are more than heating up, and this is getting better and better and better. We have 2 episodes left, 7 and 8, that we need to discuss. Whew, and those are going to be doozies. And I'm telling you, by the time you finish the series, you're going to be like, I cannot wait for part two because this is the part one. These first 8 episodes are part one of the series, and we expect the second part of the series in March of 2025. Ciao. So, anyway, thank you so much for being with me. I hope you enjoyed this recap. I hope you'll discuss with me in the comments. But again, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. You know, I'm on my journey to 100 subscribers. I really want to get to 500 subscribers. You know what I'm saying? But let's start off small and get the 100 on. So go ahead and press that subscribe button, share it, and tell somebody else about it. And let's come and chat. All right. Thanks so much for being here and have a great one. Bye.